Hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 28 of How Do You Write? It's episode 28. That number really means nothing except that it means that I've been doing this for a little while now, and I am starting to feel like I am getting the hang of it. Podcasting is something that has a steep learning curve, and I am just so happy I've been having so much fun with it. Today's interview is nothing different from that. I absolutely loved speaking with Mridu Khullar Relph, who is the founder of the International Freelancer.com. And she came onto my radar about a year and a half ago or so when I was trying to find out how to make more money with my writing. I was looking into content marketing, all different kinds of writing, and her site is just one of the best out there. I can't recommend it more highly. We talk about it a lot in the interview, but you should go sign up for her newsletter. It's fantastic. And what I really, really value about her is her authenticity and her willingness to really go there to show what she's going through, what she has learned, what's hard, what's great. Her voice is so honest, and I really believe that as human beings, we identify most with people when they are being their true, honest selves with us. Because the human nose is strong and it can smell a lie from 4 rooms away. It's like when the cat misses the box. My metaphor is running away, so I'm going to let it go and bring it back in, tell you a little update about what's going on in my world. I got that Patreon essay out the door. Huzzah, kicked it right out. I think I mentioned this last week, but I did really struggle with that Patreon essay because I was talking about the cult of creativity, which is a fascinating subject for me. And the essay itself, I can admit, was a little bit meta because on Patreon, people tip me to talk about creativity. So who am I to talk about the cult of creativity and selling creativity to people who might not feel as creative as they want to be? But I think that I did a good job. The theme was there. I backed it up. It actually turned out to be a funnier essay than I normally write. So that was fun, and I'm getting really good feedback on that. So that feels good to get it out the door. I also got my revisions back from my editor on the second Ballard Brothers book. So I'm about 2/3 of the way. Yeah, exactly 2/3 of the way through revising that book. I should kick that out of bed later this week. And as I record, it is the 19th of December, and I am going to take a week or a week and a half off. I swear to God. I'm very, 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 very bad at taking time off. You might know that. But you might identify with that. Or you might not. You might be a really good relaxer, and in which case I legitimately applaud you. I am constantly trying to learn how to relax a little bit more, a little bit better, a little bit deeper. But I am going to go see my in-laws, and I'm just going to bring books. I do have a lot of reading to do for a class that I'm teaching next semester. So I need to start doing that reading. But what better excuse is that to go to the snow and lie around and read books? Fantastic. Our fabulous house sitter is coming in to town tomorrow. So we know that the house is well taken care of. Don't get any ideas. Thank you. Other than that, it's been a great week. I can't wait for next year. 2017 can't come soon enough. Who knows if it's going to be the garbage fire that 2016 has been, but we say that. Terrible, terrible things have happened in 2016, including to some people that are very close to me that they will never recover from. However, 2016 also has brought amazing things. I quit my job in 2016, 8 months ago, and I'm still here, still doing this job. I do not work for Trader Joe's yet. I will work for Trader Joe's if I have to, but so far so good. So 2016 is keen that way. And I hope that as you exit this year, as we all do, that you're thinking about what your goals are for next year, for your writing. One of the most valuable things I did last year with a friend, my friend Adrienne, we sat down and we plotted out the year. What I wanted to accomplish, which books I wanted to write and when. And I put it in Trello.com, which is just an app for lists and project management. But what I really liked is it's still there and I got to look at it. I don't look at it very often, but I did look at it. And the things that I accomplished in 2016 were so many. There were just so many things that I'm proud of. I had 4 books come out in 2016. Good God. 1 literary traditional published, 2 romances traditionally published, and 1 romance that is completely self-published. So that I really hit all the goals. That feels really good. I would like to do the same thing in 2017. I'd like to do more. And I'm going to be using the time over the Christmas break to kind of look at those goals and to write them down. So I think you should do the same thing. Goals are good. And on that note, please enjoy this fantastic interview with the delightful Mridu. And I'll see you next year. There will not be an episode next week because I'm taking the time off. So see you next year, all. Okay, enjoy. Well, I am just so pleased today to welcome to the show Mridu Khullar Relph. And let me give you a little introduction, Mridu, if you don't mind. She is the founder of the International Freelancer, which is how I found you. She has written for the New York Times, Time, CNN, ABC, the Christian Science Monitor, Ms. Mary Claire, and many more in a career spanning over 13 years. Her assignments have required her to trek up and down the tsunami-ravaged coast of India, to live with Tibetan nuns and interview coffin makers in Ghana, as well as learn how mobile phones are designed in the U.S. and much, much more. Welcome to the show, Mridu.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for having me.
Well, I found you. You are very active and informative. Your website about content marketing. And when I was looking into doing more content marketing, you were always the first one that came up, and more than just the content marketing angle, your voice just really resonated with me. You've been extremely honest about how you live your life and emotions and all of that with your email newsletter. And I think that that's fantastic. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very nice to hear.
It's lovely, lovely. So let's jump into how you write, because that's what we talk about here. What is the best time of day for you to write, and where do you write?
So I write mostly at nights, and I have experimented with this a bit. So when I was single and not married, and I had I have a son now, but before he appeared, I used to work all through the night and then sleep through the day. And so that was because I always found it really, I found just the evening hours, they stretch on and there's no disturbance and there's no noise. And of course, after he was born, it became more difficult to do that. And for a while, I started sort of writing during the day. And I actually did notice a huge difference. And maybe it's just the way certain minds work. And I found that I could be productive and I could write during the day, and I still do. But my night hours are still where I can get, in 3 hours, I can get as much work done as I would in 6 hours in the day.
Oh my goodness.
So now I try to balance that out. So I'll still wake up in the morning and I'll still, do the normal day, but then I'll have like sort of 2 or 3 hours. I might have a nap or just have a bit of a rest during the day. And so then I can sort of push it to about 2 at night. And so I'll do sort of like a morning shift. And then I have like the afternoon to myself and, just family stuff. And then I'll do a night shift when nobody's around and my son's in bed, and I can, I have a long stretch of time to do work that way as well. So that way I kind of get to keep the best of both worlds. I've got the daytime for social events and meeting people and still being around for my son. And I get that stretch of night where I can have like maybe 3 or 4 hours where I can just really pound out the words if I need to. And so I feel more creative at night.
It sounds like the best of both worlds, but when do you sleep?
Well, yeah, I was watching one of your videos actually where you were talking about sleep and how you like sleep, and I do too. But I actually have found that if I can kind of binge on sleep sometimes. So I can go like 6 hours of sleep a night or 5 sometimes, and then I can have 3 or 4 days when I just, don't work or just sleep or relax. And so I can kind of make it up that way. But I'm not sure that's something that works for everybody, but for me that seems to work pretty well, where I can, I can get excessive with work and then I can get excessive with sleep, and it just sort of balances out.
Do you do better fiction work at night? Is that when those creative juices are flowing?
Definitely, fiction and creative work. But also, I feel just I'm more productive anyhow in terms of, if there's something that I'm avoiding, email. Um,
Oh my gosh, I have so much email right now I'm avoiding. I can't even handle it.
yeah, if I need to power through something that I've been avoiding for a long time, then that's probably the time when I'll
Yeah.
probably be able to handle it best.
And
Yeah.
how do you write? Do you write longhand on the computer? How do you start and go through?
So I'm a huge fan of Scrivener, and I'm
Mm.
sure I'm not the first person to say that. I love Scrivener, and I've been using it, I think, for over 10 years now, probably from around the time that it was created. I'm not sure when that was, but I was an early adopter, and I've loved it since then. I've been using it for not just my fiction and books, but also for my journalism. So, because of the way Scrivener is structured, you can save research to it and you can move around things and,
Hmm.
drag and drop. And that really helps in terms of when you're trying to write a long article, for instance, for 3 or 4 thousand words, you can keep your research at the same place where, your draft is. And so you don't have to keep moving between tabs and windows. And that I found, especially with journalism, because you're doing so much research, can be really hard to keep tab of everything. And so once I discovered Scrivener, I was sold. I don't necessarily write in Scrivener, though I
Mm.
will organize in Scrivener. I use, I think it's called Write Room, which is basically just a very simple app that creates a black screen on your computer and it's distraction free. So when you type on it, or everything else is gone and you're just you and the black screen. And so it's sort of like a distraction free option. And I'll create my drafts in that and then I'll just copy them to Scrivener where I can sort of move them around.
And can you
And
tell us what that app is called again? It's Right Room?
I think it's Write Room. I can
Okay.
check for you very quickly. I think there was one called Write Room. The current one I'm using is called Focus Writer. So they're both the same,
Okay. Yeah.
which is basically just creates a black screen. And I think Write Room might be free, or one of them is free and one of them is not, but I'm not sure. I've had both in the past, and I
Yeah.
think it's just one's on PC, one's on Mac, something like that.
Okay.
But so it's Write Room or Focus Writer is the other one. And yeah, I'm a big fan of longhand too, I have to say, for fiction when I'm struggling. I think it kind of taps the mind in a different way than writing on the computer does. So when I'm struggling with a scene, I will actually take a pen and paper and go sit outside on a bench somewhere and just write without thinking. And it ends
Mm.
up being quite helpful, I found. So, but I only do that when I'm struggling because it's slow and it's, it's something just, I feel more creative writing with pen and paper, I have to say.
I do
But
too.
it's not something I do too frequently because nonfiction, I've never done pen and paper, but
There's
fiction, I
there's no
have.
time for that.
No. Blog
That's,
posts on pen, yeah, it's
can you
just not.
imagine? Oh
No.
dear. And how do you refill the creative well for yourself?
I've had different ways, through the years. Reading is the obvious one, but actually lately, what I found is going and sitting by a large body of water. So I
Mm.
live very close by to a lake, and I feel that if I can, no matter how I'm feeling, if I can go sit next to a large body of water, in my case, a lake, it just balances me out, and I feel like that's a secret tip that nobody knows.
Nobody talks about that. I feel the same way. I live close to the San Francisco Bay, so I'll do the same thing.
Perfect,
But
yeah.
and I would say that most people listening probably have some kind of body of water in town.
And they also know it. It's actually not as everybody knows this, but we just don't. I never thought about it, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah, and it's just recently when I've been walking around it and realizing that I feel a lot, calmer after I come back, and so I started doing it more. And I just like to sit by the lake and sometimes right by the lake as well. And it's actually really nice, and I do feel like it sort of yeah, that fills my well, refills my well for
That's
sure.
a wonderful tip, and it's just something I forget to do. I just forget. What is
I've
the
actually said to writers in the past that if you're feeling depressed, go sit by a body of water. And if you're feeling manic, just walk around it as many times as you can until you're ready to drop.
I
So it
love
works
that.
both ways.
Yeah, we have a lake here in Oakland that's 3.4 miles around, so it's a really great place. It's just the perfect length,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Wonderful. And what is the worst advice you've ever been given? Writing, that is. I'm sure there's other advice.
Yeah. So yeah, I think one of the things that I've been looking into recently is how to market books, and I think every time that question every time I've put that question to other writers, I have sometimes received answers to the sort of like, well, write another book, or write a good book. And to me, that is good advice, sure, but I think that is sort of like the very base zero. You have to write
Yeah.
a good book and you have to write the next book, but that is not how you market a book. I mean, I feel like that's almost the base.
Yeah.
Even without that, there is no going forward. But yeah, I find that a lot, that when people, writers, ask for how to market their book, which is something that we all need to learn, especially now, that there is not enough good advice on that. And sometimes the advice that I've been given is, well, just write the next one, or and I am writing the next one, but
Yes.
also write a good one. Well, I've tried. I wouldn't be putting it out there if I thought it was bad. But yeah, I think we need to get a little bit more beyond that. So
That is excellent. That's that magical thinking that people have and that we all have. I know when I was very, very, very reluctant to market anything, my answer to myself was, "Oh, I'll just write the next book." And it was easy
yeah,
to say. But in this world of today with all the stuff that's out there, you have to market. You have to. There's nobody that gets away with not doing it.
yeah, and also should write the second one, because the more books you have out there, the more people will find it. But if
Definitely.
nobody's read the first one, then nobody's going to read the second one either. The
Right.
people aren't just going to find out about it. You have to tell people about them,
Right.
and the only way to do that is to market effectively.
Yep. I could not agree more. What secret writing tip of awesomeness did you discover the hard way?
I think it would be to accept rejection as or failure, for that matter, as something that, just to make that a normalcy in your life. So when we sort of talk about failure and rejection, we sort of almost see it as something that we have to put up with in order to be writers, because that's sort of the negative part of it, of being a writer, and that is true. But if you can learn to just make it a part of your everyday, which is what I practice and now teach as well, if you can make that a practice in your everyday, something to look forward to almost, then that can take away the negative and help you take more risks. And as an example, so you might have seen this already. There's a lot of challenges going around in the writing community at the moment, which is to maybe aim for 100 rejections a year, or a course I teach to my students is to send 30 pitches in a month. So that's my course called 30 Days, 30 Queries, which is to send a pitch every single day for a month. And you will get rejections, but the more you get them, the more you start sort of just seeing them as a very normal thing. And the more you're able to do that, first of all, you don't take them, you're not so upset by them every time a rejection arrives.
Right.
But the second thing is that you're actually pushing yourself to do more. Because if you're aiming to get 100 rejections at the end of the year, then you're going to be submitting far more. You're going to get more acceptances as a result of that, but also you're going to feel positive about this very negative thing in our life. I mean, I used to say the only way to deal with rejection is 1, cry, and 2, alcohol. And I think, and I think I've changed my tune a little bit on that, which is get motivated by it. And now, so every time I get a rejection, I will send another thing to that same market, and I will send that rejected piece out somewhere pretty much within a 24-hour period.
Oh, that's
And
fantastic.
keep the cycle going. And the more you keep that cycle going, the more you're helping yourself get those acceptances as well. And so I learned, the hard way, to just, take that as something that is just a normal part of your day. I don't think I was ever fazed by rejection, but it was a negative thing that I've now just converted into sort of a normal thing that happens. And I don't even blink every time I get rejection now, because it's almost like, well, now we're building a relationship. Now we're
Right.
talking.
Right, exactly. And that actually leads to my next question, which is, how do you deal with the silence? I know that a lot of listeners will be sending out queries to agents or editors. And for me, when I was querying agents, the hardest thing for me was to realize that 5 months later, I was never going to hear from this person. How do you, even if you send the follow-up, and how do you deal with that personally?
I don't mind it now, because again, because of the journalism that became, I was sending out, when I first started, I was sending out 5 pitches a day. And so a lot of that did result in silence or a lot of rejection, because now people don't respond that much because we've got email overload. But back in the day, people responded, and so I'd be getting rejections pretty much all day long. That was fun. But yeah, so I was sending a lot. And because of that, I feel like the silence, if you've always got things going on in the pipeline, the silence won't bother you as much. If you've only got one thing, then you're constantly on watch. Where is that one thing? Has somebody responded? Has somebody not responded? If you've only got And if you've got like say 10, 15 things, then it's not that big a deal because you've got, one thing hasn't been responded to, but there are 14 other things out there.
Yeah.
The other thing is to just kind of, just accept it as is, which is that, some people don't respond. You can follow up. I recommend following up 2 times, maybe not more than that, because then it starts getting maybe to the person you're following up with, maybe a little annoying because they're like, well, I'm not interested.
And then they might remember you as that person who wouldn't stop.
Yeah, I think 2 is a good number. But then I do recommend following up for sure, because sometimes emails get lost and people are busy. And as I was saying to somebody the other day, sometimes I look at emails on my phone and I want to respond to them, but then I'll go on the computer and they're read already, so then I forget.
So yes.
Following up is a great way to get assignments from people who are very disorganized, and and who is not in this. So, I recommend following up. But other than that, I don't take silences personally. They're the same as rejections. I actually prefer rejections to silences.
I do too, yeah.
But again, I have that list of, like when I was querying agents, I had a list of 100 that I was going to make my way through. And so every time I got a rejection, I was like, okay, on to the next. And also I had a 2-week period. If I didn't hear from them, I just counted it as a rejection. And then moved on to the next person on the list. And I think I was on number 14. My
agent, whom I love, and I would not be in this business without, was number 32 for me.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And also I had sort of like, I would send 10 at a time. So I was doing 10. And then, as soon as 5 had either not responded or had rejections, I would send the next batch of 10 and something like that. And I think I was on the third batch when my agent, assigned me on.
Yeah, I would do them in batches of 5. Because that's all the rejection that I could handle. But the thing I always like to tell people is that don't query your dream agent first, because as you're doing all these queries, your query is getting better and better as you keep getting those rejections and you keep looking at it and polishing and tightening. So
right, yeah. See, I went for the straight for the A.
So did I. Yeah. So did I. Got immediately rejected by them. But my agent now is my dream agent. So, can you give us a quick craft tip of any kind?
Okay, so the one that I've recently learned is that when I used to look at books, I used to look at them as chapters, and first of all, it was like this big, huge thing that you have to do. So you break it down into chapters, which is normal advice given to everybody. And I found that even then, it did seem like you're trying to perfect the chapters as I was writing them. And so the thing now I do is I look at it in terms of phases. So the first phase is I'm just outlining a book, and the second is I'm just making sure there's a coherent story here. And the third is I'm just making sure that the scenes are all sort of linked together. So the more you can go through in phases, and I'm sure for different minds it works differently, but for me, if I could go in phases, I could focus on one aspect of the book rather than the whole book in one go. So I could have a phase for characters, making sure they're all sort of, doing what they're supposed to, and making sure then there's a phase for plot. And that way you can go through multiple drafts without sort of having a breakdown about how you're on the 20th draft and it's still not done, which is happening to me a lot at the moment. I am now about to enter the 7th year of my never-ending novel. So
what phase are you in with that novel right now?
I think we're on the final revision now. Ooh. So I do have an agent, and we've worked through it once, and I think she has a level up here and I'm sort of down here, so I'm trying to get there. So it's taking a few revisions, and I think I'm on the last one now, and then hopefully once we get to the same level, then we'll start the process of selling it. But yeah, she loves the novel, but we're just working through some of the kinks.
That's fantastic advice, though, separating those rounds into discrete units. I do that a little bit in revision in terms of, but I do it for things that I literally forget to put in books. I always forget to put in setting at all. There's no setting in any of my books. And that's one of my pass-throughs. Every scene, I make sure that they are actually grounded in space and not just talking heads, and it does take that pressure off.
Yeah. I think, when I was doing the first draft, it was all about just putting through, whatever was coming up. And right. I didn't try to worry about, is this working in terms of story, or is this working? I mean, of course, some of that just comes naturally, but I wasn't too worried about how it's all coming together and, how they, some writers talk about green eyes in the first chapter and then blue eyes in the 10th chapter.
I've done that.
Yeah, so I wasn't worrying about that at that stage
Yeah.
because you can't worry about all of
Yeah.
it in one go. So I kind of now worry in phases.
Wow, I love that.
So
And
that
I think that's genius though, because that's what scares so many writers because a book is so huge and a revision is so huge. But if you worry in phases, I think I'm going to adopt that.
Yeah. It's the only way I can do it. Otherwise, it's just too big. And you're always missing something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I just go, now I'm looking at plot, and now I'm looking at character, and now I'm looking at, words. Now I'm looking at sentence structure.
Yeah.
So that sort of thing.
Words
Yeah.
are always my last. I make it
Yeah, well, you have
very
to be.
beautiful at the
Yeah.
last. Otherwise, if you make
Yeah.
it beautiful early, you're going to toss
Then
that out
changing
anyway.
it. Yeah, exactly. It's too much work.
On really bad days, if you could not do any kind of writing at all, not content marketing, not fiction, what kind of job would you choose?
I don't know because, well, maybe librarian, but I have never wanted to be or been anything but a writer. So I wrote my
that's
short
nice.
story when I was 6 and had that made into the school play, and I was hooked.
That's fantastic.
So I have never been anything else, and I've never, I've been a writer, professional writer since I was 19, obviously writing way before that. So I've never been anything else. But I think if I could not write and if I had to be anything else, it would have to be something to do with books. I think librarian or bookstore manager or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. If you were starting all over again as a new writer, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say consistency in anything that you do, whether you're, nonfiction, whether you're a novelist, whether you're a journalist. I think if you can find consistency in whatever it is that you're doing. So, for instance, if you decide that you want to be a freelancer and you want to pitch stories, just consistently pitch and consistently write and consistently come up with ideas. In fact, make it daily habits that you do. If you're a novelist, consistently learn, consistently write. I mean, it's so obvious, the writing part, but I think the marketing part is as important as well. Whatever you choose to do, whether that's social media, anything that you decide to do that is important for your career, do it consistently. I see a lot of people saying, okay, I must do marketing, and then they'll do marketing for like maybe a few months even, but then they'll drop it because it's not working. But the only way it's going to work is if you consistently do it over a period of months and years. And we're not in an industry that you do something for a month and it works. It just doesn't work like that.
That would be so great if it did, but it doesn't.
No, even with self-publishing, right? Like
Yeah.
self-publishing is the fastest option to get a book out there. And even with that, you have to build an audience one reader at a time. And that happens through consistency, through showing up. And, if you're going to be blogging, blog regularly. If you're going to be sending out a newsletter, do it regularly so that people can come to rely on you and trust you and then get to know you, and also come to depend on you in terms of what you're offering to them. And that's how they become loyal readers and followers and will eventually buy your books or, So, and if you're doing nonfiction or if you're doing journalism, for instance, it's the same. Pitch regularly, build those relationships, but consistency is key. And I think a lot of us early on don't see the results of that consistency. I think people are consistent in the beginning, but then they don't see the result of it and therefore give up. And all I would say to myself or anybody else who's starting out is to not focus on the result, just focus on doing the work consistently, at least for, 2 to 3 years. And then you sort of hit like that tipping point, and then it starts taking off when you don't think it will, because you've hit that momentum and you've got the ball rolling.
Are you familiar with Megan O'Toole?
No.
She's great. She does a great email newsletter about marketing and things like that. And she recommended something I started doing earlier this year, which was keeping just a simple spreadsheet of all counts of followers on all different platforms, Goodreads and Twitter and all the different things. And the nice thing, I wasn't too worried about that anyway, but for people who are starting off, it really can help to know like, oh, it feels like I'm not doing anything, but I have 72 more followers than I did 6 months ago. And that's 72 more people, so I find that highly useful.
I have a daily habits spreadsheet that I use that. So I have 20 things that I have to do every single day. Well, I have to do, meaning that I want to do every single day. And that's personal as well as professional. But, on it, I've got one act of marketing. Submit something is one of them. So it doesn't matter whether I'm submitting a pitch or whether I'm submitting an essay, or submit something is one of them. I think build readership, or some social media is one of them. So, but there are 20 or 21 of these things on a spreadsheet, and then I sort of, I'm so nerdy. I mark it as like green if it's done, and red if it's not, and so then I can see at a glance, first of all, which things are being done every day, which are not. So which things need more focus, but also it's kind of, I want all of it to be green. So. So yeah, the nerdy part of me is going, well, no.
The nerdy part of me right now is grabbing that. I want that. I'm going to start doing that.
I need to turn it green. So yeah.
Have you ever had a fully green page?
I have not.
I wouldn't either.
No, I think it's difficult, but it's the idea is to aim to do those 20 things every single day, and I understand that that's not going to happen, but it's a challenge. I think of those 20, I've got to 18.
Oh,
I've never actually done all 20 in one go.
I have 7 on my list today, and I'm not sure I'm going to get through 6. So,
yeah, but I don't consider these to-do list items. I consider these just sort of daily habits, like exercise or just that sort of stuff. But yeah, it can keep you on track and sort of motivated if you're that kind of person.
I love that.
And yeah,
I'm a bullet journal kind of person, so I think I'll probably implement some of that. What would you like to plug right now? What would you like to tell us about your website or a course or?
Well, the website is the International Freelancer, and everything goes up on there. And the blog has been quiet for a long time now, but it's going to start up again in 2017, and we're going to do a really cool giveaway at the beginning of 2017. So I'm going to be giving away 50 or 60 e-courses. So
fantastic.
If you want in, go subscribe and hit the subscribe button. So get on the newsletter.
And listeners, the newsletter is really, really worth subscribing to. Absolutely worth subscribing to.
Thank you. We've got loads of cool free resources on the International Freelancer for freelance journalists, international freelance journalists. So that could mean, you could be in the US writing for the US market, but just be globally minded, or you could be somebody in the US wanting to work globally in terms of, take advantage of European markets and Asian markets, or you could be somebody in Asia or Africa. I started my career in India, and there were no resources for people like me. And so National Freelancer, I just wanted it to be a global community where it didn't matter where you were from. You could, if you wanted to make a living as a writer, then these were the resources for you, and it did not matter which country you were from or which country you were writing for. So I was Indian, I live in England, and I write for the American market. So
truly international.
Truly international. The International Freelancer, lots of resources. And we're now sort of starting to talk, now that I've gotten into books a bit more, I'm starting to talk about books a bit more as well. I always kind of base everything on my experience, so I don't teach anything that I don't personally know. And so now I've gotten into fiction, but I have self-published nonfiction as well. So now we're talking books as well. Fantastic. And just go onto the International Freelancer, and lots of stuff there for you.
Thank you so much, Mridu. This was just fantastically inspiring. And
Thank you so much,
I love
Rachel.
knowing that you've been doing this since you're 19. I think you might actually be the person who started the youngest and actually, made her way. I started at, 19 also and got 4 pages in and then stopped for many years.
Well, I started blogging. I think I'm the millennial generation, right? So I started blogging before I actually started. So at 19, I had a blog, and this was way before WordPress. So I was blogging pre-WordPress, pre-blogger actually. So we didn't call it blogging then. We just called it updating our website, and we did like hand-coded HTML websites. And so I was doing that at the time. And then as it grew, my career grew, and I think I got a lot of attention in the beginning because I was young female in India writing for the international audience, or aspiring to at the time. And I was, like now, just sharing honestly everything that was going on, and, sharing stories of the good and the bad and the ugly and the sobbing and everything. So.
Well, your authenticity is what makes you so approachable too. And so you really do inspire a lot of trust in your readers. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, happy writing to you. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's just been a delight.
It's been lovely. Thank you so much.